Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Item 2. So, declarations of interest. Happy if we take these will go along, members? Yep. Item 3, business plans. And this is an information item. And Charlene, you want to? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, members. This item is an update on our progress at year-end against business plans which were approved by this committee in May 2025. The report covers 9 corporate departments, 8 of which sit within the Chief Executive and Deputy Chief Executive departments, and then Estates and Asset Management, which is in Regulatory Services, Facilities and Assets Directorate. So the appendices provides a breakdown of the progress against all of the measures agreed for each of those 9 departments. Over the past year, these departments have continued to support the delivery of a wide range of corporate priorities. And as the report captures only a sample of those achievements, I do want to recognise the hard work and commitment of officers across the departments and recognise their achievements over the past year. Across the Chief Executive and Deputy Chief Executive departments, 86% of the business plans were achieved, and all 8 of the departments achieved the sickness absence target, with 7.95 average days lost per employee against the 16-day target. Staffing issues in Estates and Asset Management impacted on the full delivery of that department's business plan. And we have reviewed those areas which were amber and red at year-end across all of the departments, and we have identified any key issues that impacted on outstanding areas of delivery. There were some measures that were delivered, they were recorded as an amber or red, maybe because the departments aimed to deliver that by November or December, but it actually ran on until the year end. So some of those have already now been achieved, but we do have officers available in the chamber or online if there are any queries that members have. Thank you.
Councillor McClellan, do you want to come in there and say something? Yeah.
Yes, Chair, good evening, and can at the start wish you all the very best in your year as Chair of Governance, Resources and Strategy. Hope that it goes well, Paul. Yeah, Chair, thank you, Charlene, for speaking to the report. And I suppose I'm just looking at the league table here, and I suppose a couple stand out. Number one, the comms and branding at 100%. I suppose the sort of critical friend type question says, were the original targets, you know, sort of robust enough in terms of that department? And then probably the other one that stands out is Estates and Asset Management, and probably while it stands out, it's no surprise really given the challenges that are within that department. And I suppose just the question around the Estates department is, you know, is there going to be, are we going to be sitting here this time next year with a similar result? Because I think that is a forward-facing part of this council, and I think it's important that we ensure that we have the capacity to improve that number. So just a couple of questions, couple of queries, Chair, on both the top of the league and also the bottom of the league, if you want to talk about it in those terms. Thanks.
I'm going to bring in Paul Tomati here.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor McClellan, for your query in relation to, I suppose, comms. Certainly the critical friend thing. We'll take that on board, and I suppose looking forward to that. We're quite conscious that we're very proud of our comms and branding teams, and they work very efficiently under trying circumstances at times. And so, yeah, we will certainly take that on board. Go back and look, certainly in this year's business plan, which I know is recently approved, but and see if there's anything we can maybe push a bit further on certain things. So, but thank you.
Just going to bring in Elizabeth here before Tim wants to come back in again.
Thank you, Chair. and thanks for the question around the estates and asset. I suppose to give members some reassurance on this over the last number of months, we have now commissioned a round planned preventative maintenance survey. This is something the Council has never had. So up until now, it has very much been a reactive maintenance schedule where as things break down, we fix them. This will allow us to actually fully assess the condition of our assets and to start planning that out and planning it out in a better, more efficient and more effective way. So hopefully by next year we will start to see the outworkings of that and to have the proper budget realignment to actually work through the condition of our assets and to make the improvements that are needed and the investments that have been needed. Alongside that, you will recall as well, members, that the events has been a big part of that building maintenance team. And thank you for your support and the support of my co-director in working through that. And we're hoping from the 1st of August that that will then move from that department to allow actually maintenance guys to carry out the maintenance that they need to be doing rather than the events work that they've been doing. And particularly over certain times of the year, they are so busy in fulfilling the requests that are coming in around events. Members as well, in that area, there is a difficulty recruiting. It is very difficult to recruit at the salary scales that council pay for certain of those jobs, and that continues to be a problem within the sector and particularly within the building maintenance team. But I suppose to give that reassurance around the planned maintenance that we hope to carry out to address some of the issues that we have within the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll bring in Councillor McClellan in.
Yes, Chair, thank you for indulging me and bringing me back in, and thank you also to Paul and Elizabeth for their answers. And I am reassured, and I think the trick here is to make sure that we have capacity in the system, and it's important that our officers keep the two-way sort of dialogue between members and so on, because it's better to have a plan than to have some of us on your tail in terms of needing something done. So it's heartening, and so wish you all the best in the year ahead, bringing the plan to fruition. So thanks.
Okay, Councillor Hawken.
Thank you, Chair. And I suppose, like my colleague, I just want to wish you all the best for your year ahead and for the Deputy Chair. So I think just more to make a comment than anything else, I know this is an information item. I want to place on record my thanks to the officers, because sometimes this doesn't get the headlines when you're doing the work behind the scenes to try and build the right culture. And I think this department is moving in the right direction, and we can see that, and the officers have talked about it here tonight. I remember a similar situation in environmental services, when we weren't really doing the right forward planning. So it's great to see this actually happening, and I want to commend the officers for that, and to the interim chief executive as well for her work on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So that was an information item. We'll move on then to agenda item 4. It's a decision item. So we'll bring in Martina, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Yes, this is a decision item, members, and the purpose of the report is to seek approval for the draft performance improvement plan for 26-27 at Appendix 1, which includes the performance improvement objectives, and also to note the consultation report on the draft objectives and the quality screening and rural needs impact assessment also attached. So whilst the main body of the plan details the performance improvement objectives, the appendices therein include more detailed information on the consultation process itself, how we identified the performance improvement objectives, the timetable and the Council's statutory duty to improve, and that information is all required as part of the Local Government Act and associated DFC guidance, and as such will form part of the NIAO performance audit and assessment later this year. So Appendix 2 contains the consultation report and provides a summary of the responses received. That information was taken on board before we finalised the actual improvement objectives to include within the plan.
So also just for reassurance, in line with best practice and to close the consultation loop that we asked, you said we did section of the Council's consultation hub will be updated in due course in relation to other feedback and comments that were made as part of the consultation process. And the draft plan will be presented also at the June's P&A Committee for information. And finally, the Council is required to publish the improvement plan by the statutory deadline of the 30th of June 2026. So we're seeking members' approval for the plan so that we can go ahead and publish it then within that statutory deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. We're going to bring in our Deputy Chair here, Catherine Nelson.
Thank you, Martina, and to your team for the work that went on in the background in order to produce this. I suppose just a couple of things that stood out whenever I looked at it. If you look at some of the responses around our waste services and what residents want, it's something that we've been echoing and we've been working on: more litter wardens, stronger enforcement, better communication when collections are missed. And so obviously it's important that we do that. You know, you said and we did, and we show people that if they respond to our consultations that's a worthwhile exercise. The cemeteries have obviously been in the headlines for a wee while now, and I think it's important to note that they received quite positive responses, and the strongest feedback in terms of praise was for our cemetery staff, who were described as courteous and thoughtful. And I think at a time whenever we have been, you know, raising other issues within our cemeteries, that is something that we put out there. I thought the most interesting part of the report was the further suggestions for improvement. So residents raised issues like the need for better communication, concerns in their mind about potential waste of public money, that I think we should, you know, communicate where our rates money is going and the investment into our communities. More activities for people with disabilities, more grass cutting, more litter lifting, graffiti removal, maintenance of signage, and I know that's not just us. So I definitely think that in terms of those others, they would be things that would be good to be fed in through other committees to see how we could address that. But thank you for your work on it.
Okay, if there's no more comments, we'll move on to item 4.2, which is for information. Unless any councillors have any comments. Oh, wait, sorry. I have to ask the proposer and our seconder for item 4.1. Councillor Hockey and Councillor Ferguson. Okay. Yeah. So 4.2 is for information, and if you're content, we'll just move on. Note that. Okay. So we'll move on to agenda item 5, and this is an order decision item, and we're bringing Elaine.
Thank you, Chair, and evening members. 5.1 tonight is our regular external consultation schedule. So attached for members is Appendix 1 is this month's external consultations, and there are 11 of them. Included in the report are the responses. So members, I'm seeking, further to any changes you may have tonight, approval for Appendix 1 on how we will respond to those 11 external consultations this month. Thank you.
So we need a proposer and a seconder for item 5.1. Proposers, Councillor Hare, Councillor Evans. 5.2, another decision item. So again, Elaine, do you want to?
Thank you, Chair. Members may know that we were asked to nominate a councillor onto the Area Integrated Partnership Board back last year. This board is a planning board as part of the integrated care system. Our current council nominee is Councillor Tim McClelland, who unfortunately, due to other commitments, is needing to stand back from that. So we need to make a new council nomination to that. Therefore, members, it's recommended that the Council AIPB nomination is offered firstly to the Chair of Governance, Policy and Resources Committee, and then working through a process, if they're unable to take it, through the Vice Chair, members to the Health Working Group, members of GRS Committee, and finally to all members until a new nomination is secured. Happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Councillor Alderman Baxter, sorry, you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, happy to propose the recommendation. If you just could do it offline without going through maybe tonight, can we just do that process and just work through it, whoever's available then? Happy to do that. Happy to propose.
Yeah, Councillor Lavery, second. Okay, next item, information item, item 5.3. Are you happy to just a note and move on? No comments? Yep, okay. Agenda item 6, decision item, and we bring in Kate.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. This is an item 4 decision. The report seeks approval for the payment of the Council's annual subscription to NILGA in the sum of £64,114. Members will be aware that NILGA undertakes work on behalf of local government, including policy advocacy, member support, workforce development, communications and collaborative working. The report includes correspondence from NILGA's Chief Executive and the accompanying NILGA Impact Report, which outlines the support and outcomes delivered across the sector during the past year. The invoice for the annual subscription has now been received and I'm seeking approval to pay that subscription. Thank you, members.
Okay, we'll bring in Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kate, for the report. I suppose my initial view, I thought that amount was quite large compared to maybe some of the other outside bodies. It's probably a figure that was smaller in previous years, but then been added on to and so on. Inflation, when we're looking now at 64,000, and that's excluding VAT, we're probably talking about 75 to 80,000 then, the total amount. I'd have thought that a figure about half that would have been more appropriate, and the other half could be used, that could be an additional member of staff helping to clean our streets or towards like the financial assistance programme and all that we know is always coming under heavy pressure. It's just more to float it because I do think it's quite high and maybe a smaller amount would be appropriate. Is this something that can be negotiated, Kate, I suppose, through yourself, Chair? Or is there tiers to this? Because that just seems to be quite high compared to some of the other outside body contributions and my own views, we need to be spending much money raising the borough in the borough as we can, but it just seems to be a bit high.
Alderman Baxter, is this the same? Yep.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with the, it may come as a surprise to some, I tend to agree with my Alliance colleague over here. It seems very top heavy. I suppose the question I have, what is it every other, has there been a significant increase or is it sort of just similar in line with inflation over the last number of years? And secondly, I assume every council pays the same, and I suppose the third part of that question is there any councils in Northern Ireland who aren't part of the NILGA scheme?
Councillor McLellan will bring you in.
Yes, Chair, thanks for that, Mayan, and it's just to declare an interest as a member of the NILGA executive, and in line with the code, I won't participate in these discussions on this item. Thank you.
Bring Dominic in. Dominic, we're going to bring you in to answer some of those.
Thank you, Alderman Baxter. I mean, really, I'll just pick up the point around the previous costed. So it was 62.2 last year, but a £2,000 increase. So, we have been agreeing to this, but I mean, I would defer to other colleagues in terms of some of the other points that you've raised.
Okay, we need a proposer and seconder for this item. Right. Who else will bring? Yeah. The other question was raised by Councillor Lavery and Councillor Baxter, or Alderman Baxter. We'll bring in Kate, or...
No, thank you, Chair. I think the questions are about negotiation and, whether we... No, sorry. Yeah, look, I don't have that information. I can bring that information back to full council. We haven't sought to negotiate this amount in previous years, or we don't have that information about other councils. So I can certainly bring that back. again with, Dominic has already outlined what the cost was last time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I can confirm my understanding is that other councils are paying this as well. There are different amounts applied because it seems to be apportionate. But we did have a conversation about this at Solus, and it did seem to be in line with other councils that are on the larger side. So slightly different amounts, but similar, and not much of an uplift from last year. Okay.
Alderman Baxter, do you still come back in there? Yeah.
Can I maybe suggest, given some of the questions, I would like to see what the different amounts are, because I'm aware, you have 3 councils. You have Belfast City Council, which is 60 odd councillors, and I'm basing it on that, and 41 here and 41 in Newry, and the rest are 40. So I'm assuming there's 3 levels of payment. I would like to see that, and I would like to know probably, and you probably don't know that, Charlene, if there's any councils that don't sign up to NILGA. So I would suggest maybe we defer to full council or next month. I don't think it's pressing, just to get those few bits of information. And then I suppose the point that Councillor Lavery made then, is it up for negotiation? It just seems very, very top heavy.
Okay, we'll bring Councillor Lavery wants to come back in there. So.
Yeah, I suppose content to defer to whatever the appropriate body just to answer those questions, but I would have the info here. And I understand NILGA does lobbying work and joint policy work between different councils, and there's different members training programmes and that. I know I participated one a number of years ago regarding planning leadership. But it just seems, we're under financial pressure in terms of an organisation. We just want to make sure our money's well spent and we're getting our bang for our buck. It just seems a bit big when it stood out to me there, Chair. A half amount would, some people would still say excessive, but I suppose there needs to be some kind of body there, grouping all the councils together. I think it's wise maybe just to defer to get some answers to those questions and see what the possibilities are. If it is like a take it or leave it thing, then we'll have to take that decision next time. But if we could get maybe those questions answered, defer it now, and then we'll see what comes back and maybe have offline discussions in the meantime. Thank you.
Bring in Councillor Joy Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. And I agree with the previous speakers. I just wanted to add into the update paper that will return just for that quick summary of what NILGA does return to this council. I know we touched on it there, but it just would be useful to see what is the return on investment there. So it's really just a short summary of the services they provide. Would be a useful piece of context just in that update paper for members to help make their decision. Thank you, Chair.
Going to bring Kate back in again.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ferguson, just to say there is an impact report which NILGA provide with their letter, and that is appended to the report, so that might answer some of your questions. Thanks.
So we've had a proposal from Alderman Baxter and second, so it was deferred to full council. Everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to item 6.2, which is also a decision item. So we'll bring Kate back in again for that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Again, this is an item 4 decision. The report advises that correspondence has been received from the Minister for Communities, Mr Gordon Lyons, inviting the Council to consider participating in a civic initiative to mark the 250th anniversary of the United States Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July 26 through the illumination of a civic building. The Minister has highlighted in his letter the historic and ongoing links between Northern Ireland and the United States, and has invited councils to consider lighting a prominent civic building as part of the anniversary commemorations. Members should note that Council previously agreed in February 24 to cease routine building light-ups from the 1st of April 24. Members are invited to consider the Minister's invitation and determine whether Council wishes to participate in the initiative by illuminating a civic building on the 4th of July 26. Thank you.
I'm going to bring Councillor Hockey in.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Chair. So just my question would be, as per our council policy, this is a decision for the Lord Mayor. Is that correct? I suppose what I'm really getting at is I'm not sure if our current policy is referring to the Lord Mayor's discretion, which is my understanding of it, but maybe if you could clarify that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Haughey. I mean, the previous report was taken by estates, but I understand the decision made was to proceed with option A, which was to cease all building light-ups from the 1st of April 24. But if the Lord Mayor of the day had a nominated charity that they wanted to have a reception and light up the building on that night, that request would be for party leaders' approval. So I think that was the decision. There wasn't kind of anything other outside of that, is my understanding.
Councillor Hawking, you want to come back in again?
Thanks for that. I suppose then I'm not fully understanding why this is in this committee and why we're being asked this question. I suppose maybe it's to test the water and see if people are in agreement with it. It sounds to me like it does need to maybe go to party group leaders first. My concern about this is if we start this again, we're going to end up with a whole raft of requests, and quite frankly, I can think of a number of them that would be more relevant to this borough than the birthday of the United States of America, but we'll deal with that in party group leaders if we have to. But I'm just not sure what the decision tonight would be.
I want to bring in Alderman Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. And I do remember the discussion. It was actually me that brought it, I think, way back, because the buildings were lit up every night and nobody knew what they were lit up for, I think. And that's, we come to the agreement that the Lord Mayor on the day, if they had a chosen charity, could maybe have discretion to do it. Personally speaking, I don't have a huge issue with this. I think it is something that should be probably recognised and celebrated, actually, because of some of the links there are, even with business, even with Armagh and that as well, I think, for the borough. Not going to down a ditch over it, but I don't really want to force a vote on it either, so I'm happy to, maybe if it does come to emerging issues or party group leaders or one of those forums, but then it's obviously time critical now as well. It's less than a month away. Maybe back to full council, maybe party group leaders, we're going to have a discussion before that. Just because it is probably a bit woolly around the policy or around what we agreed before.
Are you proposing that, Councillor Alderman Baxter, that the party group leaders discuss this before the next full council? Yep. Councillor Lavery, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose my own initial gut reaction was a bit of frustration because I was upset at the change of policy at the time because I felt that a lot of charities would lose out in terms of publicity and things and recognition for their services in the borough. The lighting up was a small thing, but it made an important difference to them. And I would be uncomfortable treating this request from the DFC Minister different from the situation we have to do for charities currently in the borough and elsewhere, which is no, other than the Mayor's one. So I'd be uncomfortable doing one thing for one minister and then the rest for literally every other charity in the borough. So for me it would be no. I don't think we hear people saying it's not a charity, but if we can't even support charities in the borough by something like this, I don't think we should be just going with what the DSV minister would want. So for me it would be a no, but happy to discuss with the group leaders, but I don't see this as a goer.
Bring in Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry, just to wish you well in your year ahead, in your position of Chair, and I've no doubt it will go well for you. When I'm reading this, it says, and I read our policy, I actually don't think there's any scope unless it comes and originates from the Lord Mayor. So our policy says to proceed with option A, so this is what we agreed, to cease all building light-ups from 1st of April 2024, but if the Lord Mayor of the day had a nominated charity and they wanted to have a reception and light up the building on that night, that request would be put to party leaders for approval. I don't see anything there to suggest that it can originate in party group leaders, and therefore to do that would require change of policy, times against us. And so I think, Kate, can you just clarify that understanding of the policy as read?
Yes, Councillor Nelson. I mean, that was verbatim the decision that was made. I mean, the reason that it was brought here was because it was a request from a minister. So I didn't think it was my place not to bring it to members' attention, and that was the reason that I brought it here this evening. Thank you.
Just going to bring in Councillor Kevin Savage.
Chair, thank you very much, and best wishes to yourself and the Vice Chair for the year ahead. Kate, just in terms of this policy came in February 2024, and I'm sure I've had many requests since then. And I suppose you answered part of the question, says this came in from a minister. So I'd be interested to know what our response was to previous requests and why, because it came in from a minister, it's been treated differently. You know, we do have the policy in place, and I'd be quite interested to know how other requests have been dealt with since then in regards to them coming in, because they certainly haven't came before us. So if there's any information around that, I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Savage, I think you said, was your question about requests from other ministers or just requests in general?
It was requests in general, as the policy's been in over 2 years, so I'm sure I've had some requests. You part answered the question why you brought it, but we've had a policy in place then, and you know, why was this one treated differently maybe than other ones? Because there certainly hasn't been any other light-up requests come before us since then, so we'll just be keen to get some information around that. Thank you, Chair.
Just going to bring in Mark Halliday.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Savage, at the time, from memory, that was the agreement from the committee report, and then my department wrote to all the charities that had previously brought light-up requests to council and explained the new policy. And again, the majority were content with that. And we, as an estates, have not had any requests since then that I'm aware of. I can't speak for all departments, but I can confirm that. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to bring Alderman Baxter back in again.
Yeah, look, I didn't expect a long, protracted debate in this, Chair, but I think, you know, if you get a letter from a government minister in the executive, whether you agree with that government minister or not, I think, you know, we'd be the first ones bouncing up and down if it didn't come to committee, so you've done the right thing, obviously, bringing it here. I think when we're talking about the charities that came all the time, this isn't a charity, it's a one-off event. It's a very special occasion with huge historical importance. So I think, you know, it's not the same as the request that would come in on an annual basis from charities that we, you know, we were lighting up the building in the same colour every month, every year, and year on year. This will be a one-off. So I think we should consider it and consider it properly. So my suggestion and my proposal is that we will discuss our party leaders. I see what's going on party leaders, but then bring it to full council then for a decision. So my proposal stands, Chair.
I'm just going to bring Councillor Keith Hawken in again.
Thank you, Chair, and you're showing your impartiality, because I think my DUP colleague was in before me, but thank you. So, look, I have no real issue around it going to the party group leaders for discussion, but I suppose this is more a question around process. Under our policy, does this not go to the Lord Mayor's office first, and then it goes to party group leaders? Like, there is, maybe we didn't foresee this coming along, but like, we're making a decision tonight around something that I'm not quite sure fits alongside our policy. And I think we need to clear that first. Are we missing out the office of the Lord Mayor before we actually get the party group leaders? So if you could just clarify that.
I'm going to bring Councillor Lavery in.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I suppose I'll just speak to it straight. I'm not going to support that proposal from Alderman Baxter for two reasons. Firstly, I don't think we should be just ignoring the charities and elevating the request from a minister above all the charities. All those charities did great work and they got good profile from that lighting, so it was disappointing when it stopped. And it is the policy, but I think we should just follow the policy that was in place. And second reason, saying that we have to, I think it was Alderman Baxter saying, because it came from a minister, we have to give it credence and do it and all the rest of it. quite frankly, I'm surprised that the DFC Minister's priority is to write letters to this borough about lighting up a building. The DSC Minister should be concentrating on putting more people in houses, building more houses, and all the rest of the issues regarding our social security system and everything like that. When we had pensioners in their homes, not able to heat their homes, not able to get food on their table over the tough winter, and this is what his priority is, trying to fawn over an orange man in the White House. So it's a no from me, Chair.
Councillor, we're going to bring Kate back in again.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hawhian. I mean, reading this decision, I don't know if I class it as a policy even, reading this decision, it says, but if the Lord Mayor of the day had a nominated charity and they wanted to have a reception and light up the building on that night, that request would be put to party leaders. So for me, I read it that if the Lord Mayor has a request to light up a building, it'll go to party leaders. So this is kind of, this request is out with that. So I don't think it was encompassed in the original report that went, which kind of talked about charities. So this is the first request I'm aware of that has come from a minister, and that's why it's been dealt with in this way. Thank you.
I'm going to bring Councillor Kyle Mitry in. I'll just remind people we have a proposal from Alderman Baxter still, so we need a seconder for that proposal before.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, as much as I've been enlightened by Councillor Lavery's monologue, I'm quite content to second the proposal from Alderman Baxter. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have a proposal, let me get this clear, to go to party group leaders for a discussion before it comes back to full council. Is there any other, are you happy with that, or do you want? We have three speakers here, so we'll have to bring them in. Catherine, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. And look, I really don't mean to be pedantic here, but there is no route for this to go to party group leaders until the Lord Mayor decides, because the policy, and I know, Kate, you said you don't really agree it's a policy, but a decision made by the council becomes the council's policy. So the reality is that the decision that we all took collectively was that the only way that we would light up a building is if the Lord Mayor instigated that request, and that request goes to party group leaders. I mean, it's really clear cut there, and we're going to get ourselves tied up in knots. I have to say, Councillor Lavery, I agree with you on many things, and that the Minister of Communities is spending his time writing letters to our council for such requests is as ridiculous as it sounds out loud, isn't it? At a time where we have a crisis in our housing. So we won't be supporting that, that proposal either, because it sits outside policy.
This is heading towards a vote. Alderman Baxter, do you want to?
Just very briefly, Chair, and things have escalated very quickly, and I think, you know, there's 350 million people live in America, and what an insult it is to them that you think it's all about one person, as Councillor Lavery has said, which is quite ridiculous, really. Look, yeah, there was a decision made, and made for very valid reasons, I think, to say that we can't, revisit these things or look at things or look at one-off requests, I think, silly. That takes power away from council. I think, the council have the power to make a decision, something very simple as this. So I think to say if you have a policy, you have to stick to it. There wouldn't be much point in councillors being here if you can't revisit things and look at things again. Obviously, reevaluate any decision that's made on an ongoing basis. So look, it still stands. It doesn't even have to go to party group leaders. I did make that, because we could have a discussion and flash it out there. It'll come back to full council in any way, and we'll probably vote on it then. So it doesn't really matter if it goes to party group leaders. I was trying to accommodate the other parties to have a full and frank discussion about it at that. So look, the proposal stands, and yeah, look, that's where we are with it, because if it's voted down or not voted down, it's going to go to full council in any instance.
Okay, I'm just bringing in Councillor Hawken again.
Thank you, Chair, and I do really appreciate you've allowed this debate to take place. I think probably I have more questions off the back of this than answers, in the sense of, as Councillor Lavery pointed out about the number of charities. We have contacted this council over the years, and we obviously adopted the policy for the reasons that we did. So if a request comes in from a government minister, then it's debated in the chamber. But if a request comes in from a charity or a group, we don't. We screen it out. It just seems like we're getting this the wrong way around, essentially. So look, I wasn't thinking this was going to be the debate that it is tonight, to be honest with you. I think we should be guided by policy. I think the policy in general makes this not really, this doesn't fit with our policy. I think, you know, we can fight over the details and over the minutiae of it, but in truth it kind of goes against the spirit, definitely, of the agreement that we made as a council group. So look, unfortunately we are going to end up in a vote over this, but I don't think it's the right way forward, and I would have questions, and it probably will lead to more questions in the future about, can any minister send something in off their own bat, and then we have to have this debate? I mean, let's look further on down the line and say, well, what precedent are we actually setting here? And again, I think I would agree with Councillor Lavery and Councillor Nelson. The message to our local charities is that in special circumstances we consider these things. We don't consider you to be special circumstances.
Okay, councillors, we're going to have to go to a vote for this, the proposer and a seconder. So, okay. So once it's set up. Yep. Yep. Right, members, the vote is open, so. Members, the vote's closed. Just waiting on the. Okay, so. Is that it? Is that it? Yes. So members, there's 14 votes, 8 you voted yes and 6 voted no, so the proposal is passed as it goes to party group leaders for discussion. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item quickly. You're testing me this evening, sorry. Item agenda number 7, and it's a decision item, so Darren, we're bringing Darren, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. This report relates to an agreement that has expired with Rivers Agency regarding the hydrometric recording station on the Riverbank in Solitude Park. Rivers Agency wish to enter into a new 10-year agreement from the date of signature, and they've agreed that in the event that the station is no longer required, that it will be removed and made good. So we're seeking permission to agree to a further 10-year agreement with Rivers Agency to continue with the presence of the hydrometric station. Thank you.
Okay, we're bringing Alderman Baxter.
Yep, so
we'll move on then to agenda item number 8, which is correspondence, and there's no items of correspondence. So we're going to go into confidential. So members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. So can I ask ICT officers to please turn off the feed, confirm with me when then this is, so we can proceed. Once an open session, Chair, I am to ask proposer and seconder to give the recommendation made in committee. Got the thumbs up? Yep. Okay. So we're back in public session and we're item agenda 17. There's one item. Proposer and seconder? Yep. Margaret, Alderman Tinsley, yep. You proposing?
Adopt the decision.
Yep. Yep. And Alderman Baxter, he's indicating second. So Alderman Baxter, you're the only AOB that came in, indicated they wanted to come in, so I'll let you.
Thank you, Chair. And look, we don't need to rehearse what's been happening the last couple of days throughout the country, but it was something. There was some civil unrest last year when some homes and businesses had their bins, their wheelie bins, burnt out in riot situations. When they contacted us as elected representatives to try and get them replaced, we weren't able to do it. But just when you see what's happening across the borough over the last couple of nights, I think it's something that this council should look at. And I thank Jonathan for taking the call today and the Chief Executive for taking the call as well, in terms of trying to help those who have had maybe been put out of their houses, had windows broke at home, and then end up a couple of weeks later having to replace 3 bins at a cost of 75 really quid or whatever it is. And I just think it's a bit unfair. Whilst it's not the council's fault that this has happened, it's not the residents' fault or the business owners' fault that this has happened either. And I think for a very relatively low cost, council could probably or should probably replace those bins at times of extenuating circumstances, as there is now with some civil unrest. I don't think it's a big ask to ask the council to replace bins if, you know, a business or a resident has a crime number and has reported a bin being stolen and burnt in that situation. So I know Jonathan, and you maybe speak on it, have done a bit of work on that in the background today, and it's something obviously not asking, you know, we do it now tonight, but look at it very quickly in terms of over the next few days to see if it's something that council can actually do and how the mechanics of that would look, and probably what kind of money it would cost in terms of, you know, even looking at last year, how many sort of bins were lost. I think it'd be very low cost, and it would be a very welcome to those people who are already stressed out and probably anxiety's probably running high, and it's something less for them possibly to worry about. It's a small gesture that I think the council could accede to, and I'll just ask councillor or officers to go away and look at it and see if it's something this council could do.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Hawken.
Thank you, Chair. If that's a proposal from Alderman Baxter, I'm happy to support it. I think there has been, obviously it's been covered by the media quite well, there's been a serious amount of civil unrest, but the impact on residents in North Lurgan is that there's a number of elderly residents had their bins taken and set alight by thugs last night. So I'm absolutely in favour of the council, if we can, without breaking precedent, stepping in to help in this situation. And I think maybe if you could even bring that back through party group leaders, would probably be the best, in my opinion, best avenue for discussion on it. Thank you.
Jonathan, would you care to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for your questions in this regard. So certainly happy to do a wee bit of work with the head of department, take a report through group party leaders next week, and if required, then bring a report to full council at the end of the month if members are in agreement.
Is members all content with that? Yeah. So that is the end of the meeting. I just want to put on the record my thanks to the top table here for keeping me right, and for you members for your good behaviour. And I just want to wish you well for a lovely summer, because I don't think we meet again in this committee to September. So wish you all a happy and blessed and peaceful summer. Thank you.
Sure.